Fleet Commander Zeph Kalar leaned forward on his command chair, his scarred face showing curiosity mixed with anger. What kind of counteroffer could a Deathworlder possibly make? Jake stood on his bridge surrounded by his crew in environmental suits. The air in his helmet was already starting to taste stale, and he knew they had less than 11 hours of oxygen left. Through the observation windows, he could see the biochambers glowing softly as 400 Zephyrian refugees lived safely inside his ship. "Here's my offer, Commander," Jake said calmly. "You turn your ships around and go home. In exchange, I won't show the entire galaxy what the Zephyrian government does to its own people who disagree with it." Zeph Kalar made a dismissive gesture. "The galaxy already knows we are strong. Fear of our power keeps order in our space." "There's a difference between being strong and being a bully," Jake replied. "Most species in the galaxy respect strength, but they hate bullies. And right now, you're about to attack a rescue ship that's carrying refugees, including children." The Zephyrian commander's eyes narrowed. "You think other species will care about our internal affairs?" Jake smiled inside his helmet. "Commander, do you know why humans are called Deathworlders? Because you come from a planet so dangerous that only the most violent predators could survive there," Zeph Kalar replied. "That's part of it," Jake said. "But there's something else about predators that most people don't understand. The deadliest predators don't just hunt for food. They protect their territory and their pack. And humans have decided that innocent people everywhere are part of our pack." On the tactical display, Jake could see the Zephyrian fleet was now 2 hours away and closing fast. His ship was moving at maximum speed toward Federation space, but the enemy warships were faster and would catch them before they reached safety. Amy spoke quietly over the suit radio. "Captain, I'm detecting massive power buildup in their weapons systems. They're preparing to fire as soon as they get in range." Jake knew his ship couldn't win a direct fight against 4 enemy warships. The Titan's wrath was tough, but not tough enough to survive concentrated fire from a fleet. He would have to try something desperate. "Ryan," Jake said over the intercom, "how are our engines holding up?" "Running hot, Captain, but still functional," Ryan replied from engineering. "The biosystems are actually helping to stabilize our power grid. Whoever designed Zephyrian technology was a genius." Dr. Sullivan's voice came from the medical bay. "Captain, I'm monitoring both human and Zephyrian vital signs. Our crew is showing signs of carbon dioxide buildup, but nothing dangerous yet. The aliens are actually getting healthier as their biochambers stabilize." Jake looked at the tactical display again. The Zephyrian fleet would be in weapons range in 90 minutes. After that, it would be a running battle all the way to Federation space. "Ben, plot a course that takes us through the asteroid field near the 4th planet," Jake ordered. "Sir, that's going to slow us down," Ben replied. "The Zephyrians will catch us for sure." "That's the idea," Jake said. "Lisa, prepare all weapon systems. We're going to make them work for it." Fleet Commander Zeph Kalar appeared on the screen again. "Captain Morrison, my ships are faster than yours. You cannot escape. Surrender now and I will make your deaths quick." Jake looked directly at the alien commander. "You know what, Commander? I've been thinking about what you said earlier. You called humans Deathworlders and predators. You're absolutely right." Zeph Kalar seemed surprised by Jake's agreement. "Then you understand that resistance is futile." "Actually, I understand something else," Jake replied. "You're afraid of us. Your whole species is afraid of humans. Do you know why?" "Because humans are violent and unpredictable," the commander said. Jake shook his head. "No, Commander. You're afraid because we're the one species in the galaxy that refuses to mind our own business. When we see bullies picking on innocent people, we get involved. Even when it's not our fight. Even when the innocent people aren't our species." The transmission ended as the Zephyrian fleet entered weapons range. Energy beams lanced through space toward the Titan's wrath as Jake's ship dove into the asteroid field around the 4th planet. "Evasive maneuvers," Jake ordered. "Use the asteroids for cover." For the next hour, the Titan's wrath played a deadly game of hide-and-seek among the floating rocks. Jake's crew worked perfectly despite their bulky environmental suits. Ben plotted impossible courses between asteroids while Lisa returned fire whenever they had a clear shot. The hybrid biosystems actually helped their maneuvers. The alien technology responded faster than human computers and seemed to anticipate the ship's movements. It was as if the Titan's wrath had become partly alive. "Captain," Amy reported, "I'm detecting multiple new contacts dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Federation ships incoming." Jake felt his heart jump with hope. "How many ships, Amy?" 12 vessels, sir. 3 human battleships, 4 Centauri cruisers, 2 Andromedan destroyers, and 3 support ships. On the main screen, Fleet Commander Zeph Kalar's face appeared again. This time he looked worried instead of angry. "Captain Morrison, you called for reinforcements," the commander said. "I didn't call anyone commander," Jake replied truthfully. "But word travels fast when humans are involved in something interesting." The lead Federation ship, a massive human battleship called the Liberty's Shield, hailed both vessels. "This is Admiral Patricia Stone of the Federation First Fleet," came a strong female voice. "Zephyrian vessels, you are firing on a ship conducting rescue operations. Cease your attack immediately." Fleet Commander Zeph Kalar tried to maintain control of the situation. "Admiral Stone, this is an internal Zephyrian matter. The human ship is harboring criminals." Admiral Stone's reply was ice cold. "Commander, I see a rescue ship carrying refugees and a fleet trying to destroy them. The Federation takes a very dim view of attacks on humanitarian vessels." Jake watched as the 12 Federation ships moved into formation around his damaged vessel. The Zephyrian fleet was suddenly outnumbered 3-1 and facing some of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. "Fleet Commander," Admiral Stone continued, "you have 10 minutes to withdraw from this system, or we will consider your actions an act of war against the Federation." Zeph Kalar's image flickered with frustration and rage. "This is not over, Deathworlder," he said to Jake before cutting the transmission. The Zephyrian fleet turned and jumped to faster-than-light travel, disappearing into the darkness of space. Dr. Sullivan's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, Federation medical ships are requesting permission to come aboard and help with the refugee situation." "Permission granted, Kate," Jake replied. "And get our people out of these environmental suits before we all pass out." 6 hours later, Jake stood in the main cargo bay watching as Zephyrian refugees were transferred to proper biocompatible ships that the Federation had brought. Science leader Velthara approached him, her purple skin now bright and healthy. "Captain Morrison," she said, "my people have a saying about predators. The measure of a true predator is not what it kills, but what it chooses to protect." Jake smiled tiredly. The past day had been the longest of his life, but seeing the rescued aliens healthy and safe made it all worthwhile. "Today the galaxy learned something about humans," Velthara continued. "You are indeed apex predators, but you are predators who hunt bullies and protect the innocent. That is perhaps the most beautiful and terrifying thing about Deathworlders." Admiral Stone joined them in the cargo bay. She was a tall woman with gray hair and the kind of presence that made people listen when she spoke. "Captain Morrison," she said, "your actions today probably prevented a war. The Federation Council is very interested in how you managed to create hybrid biosystems that saved 400 lives." Jake looked around the cargo bay at his crew who were helping with the refugee transfer. They all looked exhausted but proud of what they had accomplished. "Admiral, we just did what humans do," Jake said. "We heard an SOS and we answered it." Science leader Velthara touched Jake's arm gently. "Captain, when my people broadcast that distress call, we never expected anyone to answer. Certainly not humans who we had been taught to fear, but you came anyway. And you risked everything to save us," she continued. "Your ship, your crew, your lives. For strangers who had never shown you any kindness." Jake thought about his grandmother, and all her stories about sailors who saved lives at sea.
"Science leader, there's something you need to understand about humans."
"We don't do kindness the way other species do kindness," Velthara looked confused. "What do you mean?" "When humans decide to protect someone, we protect them absolutely," Jake explained. "Even if it kills us. Especially if it might kill us. That's what makes us dangerous." In the weeks that followed, word spread throughout the galaxy about the human ship that had saved 400 alien refugees. The story became legend among the stars. While many species still feared humanity's death world nature, they began to understand something else about humans. Humans were predators. Yes, but they were predators who chose to hunt those who hurt the innocent. And when humans decided someone needed protection, they would fight the entire galaxy to provide it. The SOS had been heard, and Earth's Deathworlders had answered with the only thing they knew how to give. Everything they had. The evacuation had to move faster now. Jake watched from the bridge as his crew worked desperately to transfer the remaining Zephyrians from their dying ship to the biochambers they had created. Each transfer took time because the aliens had to be carefully disconnected from their ship's biomatrix and reconnected to the hybrid systems. Dr. Sullivan worked without rest, moving between the cargo bays where the rescued Zephyrians were recovering and the medical bay where she monitored both human and alien vital signs. Her face was pale with exhaustion, but she refused to take a break. "Captain," she reported over the intercom, "we've successfully transferred 230 Zephyrians. But we have a serious problem. The hybrid biosystems are putting massive strain on our power grid. We're running at 140% capacity." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "How long can we maintain that power level, Kate?"
Maybe 6 hours before we start losing primary systems, sir," she replied.
"After that, we'll have to choose between keeping the biochambers alive or maintaining life support for our own crew." On the main screen, Amy brought up tactical displays showing the approaching Zephyrian fleet. 3 heavy cruisers and a dreadnought were moving toward them at high speed. Their weapons were already powered up and ready to fire. "Captain," Amy said, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead cruiser." The screen flickered and showed the bridge of a Zephyrian warship. The alien commander who appeared was different from science leader Velthara. This one wore military armor and his purple skin was marked with scars. His large black eyes were cold and angry. "Human vessel," the commander said in perfect English. "I am Fleet Commander Zeph Kalar of the Zephyrian Defense Force. You are harboring enemies of our state. Surrender the criminals immediately or your ship will be destroyed." Jake stepped forward so the alien commander could see him clearly. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. These people are not criminals. They are refugees under our protection." Fleet Commander Zeph Kalar's expression did not change. "You do not understand the situation, human. These beings carry dangerous ideas that threaten the stability of our entire civilization. They were sentenced to death for crimes against the state." "What crimes?" Jake asked. "They disagreed with government policy," Zeph Kalar replied, as if that explained everything. "They wanted to change our way of life and corrupt our young with their radical thinking." Jake looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet was still 3 hours away, but they would reach firing range in 2 hours. His ship was powerful, but not powerful enough to fight 4 enemy warships at the same time. "Commander," Jake said, "these people asked for help and we answered. That's what humans do." Fleet Commander Zeph Kalar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Humans are known throughout the galaxy as Deathworlders. You are predators and killers. Why would you risk your lives for beings who are not even your species?" Jake thought about his grandmother's stories and all the sailors who had died rescuing strangers from the sea. "Because that's what makes us human." The transmission ended and the bridge was quiet. Everyone knew they were in serious trouble. Even if they could finish the evacuation, they would never outrun the Zephyrian fleet while carrying 400 aliens and running their power systems at dangerous levels. Lisa walked up to Jake. "Sir, we need to talk about our options." They went to Jake's ready room where they could speak privately. Lisa closed the door and sat down across from Jake's desk. "Captain, we're not going to survive this," she said bluntly. "The Zephyrian fleet will catch us before we can reach Federation space. Even if we dump the refugees and run at full speed, we probably can't outrun them." Jake nodded. He had reached the same conclusion. "What are you suggesting, Lisa?" "We could try to negotiate. Maybe if we surrender some of the refugees, the Zephyrians will let us go with the rest." Jake stared at her. "You want me to hand over innocent people to be executed?" "I want you to save as many lives as possible, sir," Lisa replied, "including the lives of our crew." Before Jake could respond, Ryan's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, we need you in engineering right away. We have a solution, but you're not going to like it." Jake and Lisa hurried to the engine room where Ryan and Lucy were working at the main power control station. Both engineers looked exhausted and worried. "What's the situation, Ryan?" Jake asked. Ryan pulled up power distribution charts on his screen. "Captain, to maintain power to the biosystems and have enough energy for a fast escape, we need to shut down life support to half the ship." "Which half?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. "The human half, sir," Lucy said quietly. "We can reroute all available power to the biochambers and the engines, but that means no life support for any human crew areas." Lisa stared at them. "That's a death sentence for us." Ryan nodded grimly. "We'd have to work in environmental suits. Our oxygen reserves would last maybe 12 hours if we're careful. After that?" Jake looked around the engine room at his crew. These people had followed him into danger many times before, but this was different. This time he was asking them to die for aliens they barely knew. How long to reach the nearest Federation outpost? Jake asked. 10 hours at maximum burn, Ben replied over the intercom from the navigation station. So we'd have 2 hours of safety margin, Jake said. If nothing goes wrong, Ryan added. If we have to fight or make emergency maneuvers, we'll use oxygen faster. Jake made his decision. Do it. Shut down life support to all human areas and reroute power to the biochambers and engines. Lisa grabbed his arm. Sir, you're asking the crew to commit suicide. Jake looked at her steadily. I'm asking them to do their jobs, Lisa. We heard a distress call and we answered it. That's what humans do. Over the ship's intercom, Jake addressed his entire crew. This is the captain. In 1 hour, we're going to shut down life support to all human areas of the ship. Everyone needs to get into environmental suits immediately. We have enough oxygen for 12 hours, which should be enough to reach Federation space. I know this is dangerous, but 400 innocent lives are counting on us. The response was immediate. All over the ship, human crew members began putting on their environmental suits without complaint or question. They had heard their captain's words and they trusted him completely. Dr. Sullivan's voice came over the intercom from the medical bay. Captain, all Zephyrian transfers are complete. 400 souls are now safely in the biochambers. The hybrid systems are working perfectly. Thank you, Kate, Jake replied. Now get into your environmental suit. 1 hour later, the Titan's Wrath became a ghost ship. All human areas went dark and cold as life support was shut down. The only areas still alive were the cargo bays where 400 Zephyrian refugees lived in biochambers that pulsed with gentle light. On the bridge, Jake and his officers worked in their environmental suits. The suits were bulky and uncomfortable, but they would keep the crew alive for the next 12 hours. Fleet Commander Zeph Kalar is hailing us again, Captain. Amy reported through her suit radio. Put him on screen, Jake said. The Zephyrian commander appeared again, still looking angry and impatient. Human Captain, this is your final warning. Surrender the criminals or be destroyed. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew working in environmental suits to save alien lives. He thought about science leader Velthara and the young Zephyrians he had seen in the biochambers. He thought about his grandmother and all the stories of humans who had stood between the innocent and those who would harm them. Fleet Commander, Jake said, I have a counteroffer for you. Jake called all his senior officers to the main briefing room. The room was small but had a big table where they could spread out plans and talk about difficult decisions. Everyone looked worried because what Jake wanted to do had never been tried before. Listen, everyone, Jake said as they sat down. I know this sounds crazy, but we're going to try to save 400 lives today. Ryan, tell us exactly what we need to do. Ryan pulled up pictures of both ships on the wall screen. First, we need to understand how their bioship works. From what science leader Velthara told us, their ship is like a giant living creature. It breathes, it processes food, it even thinks in a way. The infection is killing parts of it, but other parts are still healthy. Dr. Sullivan leaned forward. The problem is that the Zephyrians are connected to their ship through bioneural links. It's not just life support for them. The ship is part of their minds and bodies. If we just put them in regular rooms, they'll die anyway. Amy spoke up from her seat. So we need to cut out the healthy parts of their ship and somehow connect them to our ship? Exactly, Ryan said. We'll need to modify our cargo bays to accept biomatrix grafts. Think of it like doing a heart transplant. But instead of moving a heart from one person to another, we're moving living ship parts from one vessel to another. Lisa looked skeptical. How do we know our ship's systems won't reject the alien biotechnology? Our computers and their organic systems work completely differently. We don't know, Ryan admitted, but I've been studying the scans of their ship. Biomatrix technology is actually simpler than our electronics in some ways. It responds to basic electrical signals and chemical nutrients. I think we can create interface systems that will let our ship power and control their biosystems. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the dying Zephyrian ship getting dimmer as its biomatrix continued to fail. How dangerous is this going to be for our crew? Jake asked. Dr. Sullivan checked her notes. Very dangerous, Captain. We'll need to send teams over to their ship in environmental suits. They'll be working in areas that might be infected with whatever is killing the Zephyrians. We don't know if the infection can spread to humans, but we have to assume it can. What about the surgery itself? Jake asked. Ryan stood up and pointed to different parts of the alien ship on the screen. We'll need to use cutting tools to remove healthy biomatrix sections while the ship is still alive. It's going to hurt the ship and it might fight back. Bioships have defense systems that could try to stop us. And then we have to somehow attach alien living tissue to our metal ship, added Chief Engineer Lucy Chen, who had just joined the meeting. Lucy was Ryan's assistant and was even better than him at solving impossible problems. Jake looked around the table at his officers. These people had followed him into dangerous situations before, but this was different. This time they were risking everything for strangers who most humans considered enemies. "I'm not going to order anyone to do this," Jake said. "This is voluntary. Anyone who wants to stay behind and keep the ship running safely can do that. No one will think less of you." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Lisa stood up. "I'm in, Captain," she said. "Those people are dying, and we're the only ones who can help them." One by one, the rest of the officers stood up. Amy, Ben, Ryan, Lucy, Dr. Sullivan, everyone volunteered for the dangerous mission. "All right then," Jake said. "Let's get to work. We have 8 hours to modify our cargo bays and 4 hours to perform the biomatrix transfer. Ryan and Lucy, start working on the cargo bay modifications. Dr. Sullivan, I need you to figure out how to keep both our crew and the Zephyrians alive during the transfer. Amy, keep monitoring those government ships heading our way." The next few hours were like nothing the crew had ever experienced. Ryan and Lucy worked with their engineering teams to cut holes in the cargo bay walls and install biocompatible interfaces. They had to guess about a lot of things because no human had ever tried to connect alien living tissue to a human ship before. Meanwhile, Dr. Sullivan and her medical team studied the biomatrix scans to understand how Zephyrian physiology worked. They created special atmospheric processors that could provide the right air mixture for the aliens to breathe. Lucy led a team of engineers who put on environmental suits and took a shuttle over to the dying Zephyrian ship. What they found inside was both beautiful and terrible. The corridors of the bioship were like being inside a living creature. The walls pulsed gently and glowed with soft light, but in the infected areas the walls were dark and seemed to be rotting. The smell was awful even through their suit filters. "Captain," Lucy reported over the radio, "this is incredible. The ship really is alive. I can see neural pathways running through the walls like blood vessels. The healthy areas are still functioning, but the infection is spreading." Science leader Velthera met them at what humans would call an airlock, but was actually more like a mouth that opened in the ship's hull. She was wearing a biosuit that connected her to the ship's systems and helped keep her alive. "Welcome to the growing light," Velthera said. "I will show you where the healthy biomatrix sections are located. But you must be careful. The infected areas are dangerous even for us." Lucy and her team followed the alien through corridors that curved and twisted like arteries. They passed rooms where 6 Zephyrians lay connected to biobeds that were trying to keep them alive. Some of the aliens were so young they were barely bigger than human children. "Here," Velthara said as they reached a large chamber. "This is our main atmospheric processor. It is still healthy and could support many of my people if it were connected to clean power sources." Lucy studied the chamber with her instruments. The atmospheric processor looked like a giant lung made of crystalline tissue that pulsed as it cleaned and processed air. Neural pathways connected it to the ship's central nervous system. "We'll need to cut it free from the ship's main biomatrix and somehow transport it to our cargo bay," Lucy told her team. "Then we'll have to connect it to our ship's power grid and computer systems. That's going to be like performing brain surgery on a living building," said engineer Tony Garcia, who was part of Lucy's team. "Then, we better be very good surgeons," Lucy replied. Over the next 4 hours, Lucy's team performed what could only be called medical engineering. They used biocutting tools borrowed from the Zephyrian ship to carefully remove sections of healthy biomatrix. Each piece had to be kept alive during transport by connecting it to portable power units. The work was exhausting and dangerous. Twice they had to retreat from areas where the infection had spread faster than expected. Once Tony's suit was contaminated and he had to be decontaminated before returning to the Titan's wrath. But slowly, piece by piece, they moved living sections of the Zephyrian ship into the modified cargo bays of the human vessel. Each biomatrix section was carefully connected to human power systems and computer interfaces that Ryan and his team had built. "Captain," Dr. Sullivan reported, "the first biochambers are online. We're ready to start transferring the sickest Zephyrians." Jake watched through the observation windows as the first group of aliens was brought aboard his ship. They moved slowly, still weak from the infection, but their large eyes showed hope for the first time in days. Science leader Velthara was among the first to be transferred. As soon as she was connected to the hybrid biosystems in the cargo bay, her gray skin began to regain some of its purple color. "Captain Morrison," she said through the communication system, "your people have done something that should be impossible. You have given life to the dying." But Jake knew their problems were just beginning. Amy's voice came over the intercom with news he had been dreading. "Captain, the Zephyrian government fleet just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They're 4 hours away and coming fast." 18 hours later, the Titan's Wrath dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Kepler system. What Jake and his crew saw made them all stop and stare. The alien ship was huge, much bigger than their own warship, but something was very wrong with it. The Zephyrian vessel looked like it was alive. Its hull was not made of metal like human ships, but seemed to be grown from some kind of living material. Normally, Zephyrian bioships glowed with beautiful colors that pulsed like a heartbeat. This ship was different. Its surface was dark and sickly-looking with only weak flickers of light here and there. Dr. Kate Sullivan was called to the bridge to look at the readings from their medical scanners. Kate was the chief medical officer and had been studying alien biology for 10 years. She was a small woman with gray hair who always spoke quietly, but everyone listened when she talked. "Captain, these readings are terrible," Kate said, as she studied her tablet. "I'm seeing massive organ failure across the entire crew. Whatever is killing them is working slowly, but it's affecting everyone on that ship." Jake looked at the bioship floating dead in space. "How long do they have, Kate?" "At this rate, maybe 12 hours before they all die," Kate replied. Amy worked at her communication station trying to contact the alien ship. After several minutes, she got a response. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the Zephyrian ship. What they saw shocked them all. The alien standing in front of the camera was clearly dying. Zephyrians normally had beautiful purple skin that shimmered in the light. This one's skin had turned gray and dull. Its large black eyes that usually sparkled with intelligence were cloudy and filled with pain. The alien tried to speak but had trouble breathing. When it finally managed to talk, its voice was weak and shaky. "Human vessel," the alien said. "We did not expect your kind to answer our call for help." Jake stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress signal." "What is your situation?" The alien coughed and held onto a console to stay standing. "I am Science Leader Velthara of the Growing Light. Our ship's biomatrix has been infected with a weapon created by our own government. They used it against those of us who disagreed with their new policies. We were trying to escape when the infection spread through our ship's living systems." Lisa moved closer to Jake and whispered, "Sir, this could be a trap. We don't know if we can trust what this alien is telling us." Jake ignored her and kept looking at the dying Zephyrian. "How many crew members do you have, Science Leader?" 400 souls, Captain Morrison," Velthara replied, "including 60 young ones who have done nothing wrong except be born to parents who wanted freedom." The Zephyrian paused to catch her breath. Jake could see she was in great pain but trying to stay strong for her crew. "What do you need from us?" Jake asked. Velthara's expression showed both hope and despair. "We need evacuation, Captain, but our physiology is very different from yours. We cannot survive in your ship's environment. We need biocompatible chambers with specific atmospheric conditions. Our bodies are connected to our ship's living systems, and without that connection, we will die anyway." Dr. Sullivan stepped forward. "Captain, we don't have facilities for 400 Zephyrians. Our medical bay might handle 20 in emergency conditions, and that would be pushing our systems to the, limit." Jake stared at the dying ship, knowing that in less than 12 hours every person on board would be dead. The bioship had been beautiful once, but now it looked like a dying animal, floating in the darkness of space. "Science Leader, can you explain more about this biomatrix infection?" Jake asked. Velthara nodded weakly. "Our ships are grown from living tissue that works with our bodies. The biomatrix provides life support, food, even helps us think and feel connected to each other. The weapon our government used attacks these living systems. It makes them sick and they die slowly. As the ship dies, we die with it." Amy looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting other ships heading this way. Long-range sensors show Zephyrian military vessels about 6 hours out." Lisa checked her tactical display. 3 heavy cruisers and a dreadnought, sir. They're not coming to help." Jake understood what that meant. The Zephyrian government wanted these refugees dead, and they would destroy any ship that tried to help them. "Even a human ship," Dr. Sullivan was studying her medical scanner and shaking her head. Captain, even if we could somehow house all these aliens, the infection might spread to our crew. We don't know how it works or if it can affect humans. Jake walked to the big window and looked at the dying bioship. He could see smaller lights moving inside it and knew those were the Zephyrian crew members still alive, but getting weaker every hour. Science leader, Jake said, are there any parts of your biomatrix that are still healthy? Velthara thought for a moment. Yes, Captain. The infection started in our engine sections and is spreading outward. Perhaps 30% of our ship's living systems are still clean. Jake turned to his chief engineer, Ryan Mitchell, who had just arrived on the bridge. Ryan was a big man with a thick beard who could fix anything. He was also crazy enough to try impossible things. Ryan, what if we didn't try to bring the Zephyrians to our ship? What if we brought parts of their ship to ours? Ryan scratched his beard and looked at the bioship on the screen. You mean cut out the healthy parts of their living ship and somehow attach them to our ship? That's exactly what I mean, Jake said. Dr. Sullivan stared at them both. That's insane. We'd be turning our ship into some kind of hybrid. We don't even know if our systems would work with their biotechnology. Lisa crossed her arms. Sir, even if it was possible, it would take days to plan and execute something like that. Those people will be dead in 12 hours. Jake looked around at his crew. They all thought he was crazy, but they also knew him well enough to know he had already made up his mind. Ryan, how long would it take to modify our cargo bays to accept biomatrix graphs? Ryan was already thinking like an engineer. If we work fast and don't worry about making it pretty, maybe 8 hours for basic life support integration. And how long to actually transfer the healthy biosystems from their ship to ours? Jake asked. That's the dangerous part, Captain, Ryan replied. We'd have to go over there in environmental suits and basically perform surgery on a living ship while avoiding the infected areas. 4 hours if we're lucky and nothing goes wrong. Jake looked at science leader Velthara on the screen. The alien was barely standing now, but still trying to stay strong for her people. Science leader, would your people trust us enough to let us try this? Jake asked. Velthara's large eyes showed surprise. Captain Morrison, you would risk your ship and your crew for strangers who are not even your species? Jake smiled. Science leader, humans have a saying. When someone sends out an SOS, you answer the call. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the stars through the big window. His ship was called the Titan's Wrath, and it was one of the biggest warships that Earth had ever built. Jake had been captain for 5 years now, and he loved his job. The crew respected him, and he took care of them like they were his family. The bridge was quiet that morning. Most of the crew was eating breakfast or doing their daily work. Jake liked these quiet times because it gave him a chance to think. He was thinking about his grandmother who had died last year. She used to tell him stories about old sailors who would rescue anyone lost at sea no matter who they were or where they came from. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez sat at her communication station checking messages from Earth. She was young but very good at her job. Amy could speak 7 different alien languages, and she was the best at understanding strange signals from space. She had short black hair and always wore her uniform perfectly. Commander Lisa Parker walked onto the bridge carrying a cup of coffee. She was Jake's second in command and had been in space longer than anyone else on the ship. Lisa was tough and smart and never backed down from a fight. She had saved Jake's life 3 times in the past 2 years, and he trusted her completely. Amy suddenly sat up straight at her station. She pressed some buttons and listened carefully to something in her headphones. Her face changed and she looked worried. Captain, Amy said, I'm getting a strange signal. It's a distress call, but it's not from any human ship. Jake walked over to her station. Put it on the main speakers, Amy. The bridge filled with a weak crackling sound, and then they heard a voice. It was not human. The voice was high and musical, but it sounded scared and hurt. Ship failing, the voice said in broken English. Crew dying. Please any vessel help us. Coordinates follow. The voice repeated the same message 3 times and then went quiet. Amy worked at her controls and brought up a star map on the big screen. The signal is coming from the Kepler 442 system, Captain, Amy said. That's deep in Zephyrian space. Lisa frowned and crossed her arms. The Zephyrians haven't talked to anyone for months, Captain. Our intelligence reports say they're having some kind of war with their own people. Ben Collins looked up from his navigation station. Ben was the youngest officer on the bridge, but he was very good at finding his way through space. He had red hair and freckles and reminded Jake of his little brother. Captain, the Kepler system is 18 hours away if we go at full speed, Ben said. Jake stared at the star map. The Zephyrians were an alien race that most humans had never seen. They lived on bioships that were grown instead of built. Earth had tried to make friends with them years ago, but the Zephyrians thought humans were too dangerous. They called humans Deathworlders because Earth was such a dangerous planet that only the toughest creatures could survive there. Most alien races in the galaxy were afraid of humans. They thought humans were violent and unpredictable. When Earth first joined the Galactic Federation, other species would run away when they saw human ships coming. The only reason some aliens worked with humans now was because they were scared of what humans might do if they didn't. Jake remembered when he was a kid and his grandmother would tell him stories about the old Navy ships on Earth's oceans. She said that when sailors heard a distress call, they always went to help no matter what country the ship came from or what flag it flew. It was an old rule of the sea that you never left anyone to die if you could save them. Amy, can you clean up that signal? I want to know more about what happened to them, Jake said. Amy worked at her controls for several minutes. The alien voice came through the speakers again, but this time it was clearer. This is Science Vessel Growing Light, the voice said. We carry 400 souls. Our biosystems are infected with something that kills us slowly. Government forces used a weapon against us. We were trying to escape when the infection spread. Please help us. We will die in one day if no one comes. The bridge was silent. Everyone knew that if they went to help these aliens, they might be flying into a trap. The Zephyrians had never been friendly to humans, and their government might shoot at any human ship that entered their space. Lisa walked up to Jake. Sir, this could be dangerous. We don't know anything about this infection they're talking about. It might spread to our crew. And if the Zephyrian government is chasing these people, they won't be happy to see us helping them. Jake nodded. He knew Lisa was right. It was his job to keep his crew safe, and going into alien space to help strangers was not safe. But he also knew that 400 beings were going to die if no one helped them. What do you think, Amy? Jake asked. Amy looked up from her station. The signal is definitely real, Captain. I can tell they're scared and hurt. Whatever happened to them was bad. Jake walked back to the big window and looked out at the stars. He thought about his grandmother again and all the stories she told him. He thought about the old sailors who would risk their lives to save strangers. He thought about what it meant to be human. Ben, set course for the Kepler system, Jake said. Maximum speed. Yes, sir, Ben said and started working at his controls. Lisa stepped up beside Jake. Are you sure about this, Captain? Jake smiled at her. Lisa, my grandmother used to say that when someone is drowning, you don't ask their politics before you throw them a rope. Those people are drowning, and we're the only ship close enough to help them. Understood, sir, Lisa said. She didn't look happy, but she never questioned Jake's orders. The Titan's wrath turned toward the Kepler system and began to speed up. Jake knew they were flying toward danger, but he also knew it was the right thing to do. Humans might be called Deathworlders, but that didn't mean they had to be cruel. Sometimes being strong meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The ship flew through space, toward an alien distress call and 400 dying strangers who had never expected help to come from Earth's dangerous children.